This episode of the Turf District podcast is brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network. Pod shoutout this week to Creative Block. Hosted by Kyle Marshall, Creative Block features interviews with artists and entrepreneurs about where they came from, what they are doing now, and where they want to go. Check out all their shows and all the rest of the great shows at albertapodcastnetwork.com. This show is dedicated to one of our superfans, Bill. He loved the team and interacting with us, especially providing us with gifts of the shows. Hoping the best seats in the house for all the future games for you, Bill. Enjoy the show.
Hey, fellas, we ain't gonna ever back down from nobody. I don't care who it is. This is a brotherhood. And if we stand strong together, we can't be denied. If one of us goes down, we have another, and another, and another that's ready to fight. So let's hit this field and bang them, bang them, bang them. Somebody, light me up.
It's time to huddle up. It's the Turf District podcast. Welcome back to the Turf District, where we huddle up to talk all things Edmonton Elks and the CFL. And we're a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. We're also a part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. I'm Andrew, and we have a great show for you this evening, or I guess this afternoon if you're listening afterwards. But if you're not tuning in on YouTube, why not? I mean, join, subscribe, do all those fun things, and join in our chats on Monday nights. We have so much to talk about this evening. You'd think we'd be out of things to talk about after the whole season, but no, we found ways to talk about more things. So let's bring in the usual gang, starting with going out west to Superfan Mike.
Reindeer Chandler. It's tis the season,
I'm
right?
Just impressed you don't already have a red nose. That's what I was kind of prepared for. I thought, okay, well.
Yeah, well, I'm working my way through the advent calendar.
Attaboy. I'm about 6 days behind, so I'll get there sooner or later.
Okay. Gotta make up 2 or 3 nights tonight. We'll be good.
Perfect. Also joining us down from Christmas Land, it's the one and only Commissioner Kayla. How are you?
Well, just super dandy. I mean, this day turned out to be a surprise day, and it was lovely.
Yes, I got to come down and pay you a surprise visit to drop off a gift, and it was great. Actually, your house is amazing. It looks amazing.
Thank you.
It is full on Christmas. I felt like my heart grew 3 sizes just going to your place. It was amazing, and but no, that was awesome. That was exactly the effect I wanted. A moment of what are you doing here, in a good way.
Like I couldn't find my words the entire time we were talking. I was just like, I'm still in shock. Like no one comes to my house. No one.
Well, I did. Yeah. So.
It
was lovely. And I even got a couple of minutes with Mama Jedi. That's amazing. So it was, yeah, lots of points. That's fantastic. Kayla, just before we get into our guests, you and I, we can now say that we were part of the schedule release video, and mostly you, which was better because nobody wants to see this face. But I was excited how you were, like, I loved how they got when you were going around and finding the locker. And you need to tell everyone which locker it was you were looking for.
All right, let's end the suspense. Of course it was Fred Stamps. That's the first thing I asked is I saw a plaque of Ricky Ray and I'm like, there's got to be a Fred Stamps. Where is he? And then Richard? Yes. He was like, well, you got to find it. And I just happened to take the right route and I was like, all right. Yeah, it was, I was a kid in a candy store. It was just phenomenal. I love seeing all those names and then getting to meet Willie Pless. Oh, if he wasn't a football player, he should have been a comedian because that man is hilarious. Such a good-hearted dude. Yes. So, yes. But of course it was Fred Stamps I was looking for. Pish.
Could have been Holy Mazzoli. We didn't know.
I don't think...
I highly doubt he would have a plaque.
Yeah, probably.
That's fair.
Yet.
Yet. Oh, interesting. That's going to start some interesting conversation right away. Let's bring in our guests so that we can get to this conversation.
Yes.
Joining us,
Yes.
as they usually, well, actually, I guess they've done every season. We have done a season wrap-up show with the voice of the Elks, Morley Scott and Dave Campbell from 630 Ched. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Oh,
as
we
always.
love having you guys on for lots of chatting and seeing how you're doing. Let's start with the basic question. How are you guys feeling after the whole season? Because I know it's not always easy for us. It can't always be easy for you guys.
It was a short season, right? This year, 14 games. Felt like about 34 games. You're doing a season wrap up, and it feels like the season ended like 3 months ago already.
Yep.
It's weird. Timelines were weird this year. It was a difficult year, I think, for everybody involved with the organization, whether you're a player, coach, or broadcaster, or especially a fan. It was a tough year, strange year. So many weird things going on because of COVID, and it just made it for a strange season for sure. And I'm not really all that. I don't like the fact they didn't make the playoffs and finish 3-11, but I'm not really all that upset that it ended, because I'm glad to get out of what was and hopefully get back to what is moving forward into next year and into better situation, better circumstances, and a few less protocols to deal with.
well, and also you your break started sooner. It's not like you had to go right before Christmas, which like you got a few extra weeks in there. It's not a bad thing either.
That is true.
Not what we want, but anyway. Dave, tell me how you're doing.
Well, yeah, doing good. I mean, first off, compared to 2020, I'll take 2021, even though it was a very difficult year.
Yes.
I'll take it, 10 times out of 10 for sure. That being said, the on-field product was tough to watch. We'll always have Labor Day, though. We can always say that the Elks beat the Stampeders on Labor Day. But, honestly...
Thank you, Calvin, for continuing a streak.
There you go. But, I've been covering the team since 2004. And before that, going to many, many games as a fan. And this was the worst team I've ever seen on the field. They were that bad, And all the noise around the club, the outbreak didn't help. We kind of got caught up in it a little bit as well, Morley and I. But it was just a very difficult road trip or season. And the road trip, the 3-7, I remember Morley and I are talking. I'm going, boy, that's going to be tough. He's going, no, Dave, it's going to be great because it's going to be 3 games in 7 days, then we're done. So, and I'm like, that pretty much flipped my mindset. So, it was great to get back to what we normally do in a season, in the summer and in the fall. As difficult as it was good to be back in the booth with Morley, doing what we do, getting back traveling again. That, everything was just a little bit, well, not a little bit, a lot different, but at least we got to do some games. Game day felt, great, even though it was, there was a tinge of dread, but when the balls kicked off, you forget about everything. And it's just nice to do a flow of the game and get back into the swing of things. So it was really good in that respect. But it was a very difficult season on a number of levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of us, and just talking about it, it's every time you want to talk, it's like, okay, we need to let's talk about the team, and then you're like, oh, but do we have to? I'm sure you guys felt the same. What was it like doing? Because I know you guys you're used to having that close one-on-one interview. What was it like trying to run through this where you couldn't really have that good conversation?
That was tough.
That, for me, that's what I miss most during the season, is just having those conversations with players coming off the field and getting some stories from them, whatever, about their families or about their game or whatever that we'd be able to share, because we just had no contact like that whatsoever. I really miss that. That's, to me, that's one of the favorite things, is finding out those little nuggets about players and being able to turn that into a story that we can use on the broadcast. But we just weren't allowed to get them. Everything we got this year was in a group setting, was from 12 feet apart. with the soundboard, and it just wasn't. It wasn't the same, and I think, for everybody, it's just you're used to doing things a certain way, and we just weren't able to do it that way this year. I got to say, the Elks and their new media relations guy, Evan Dom, did a great job in still making sure we got what we needed for the most part for the broadcast. I mean, we had every week, Dave and I had Zoom calls with the head coach and with the starting quarterback, and we're able to do our interviews for the pregame show and able to have some discussion with the head coach as well. So they made it work. We all made it work, but it was just not the same as it was. The thing that maybe the typical story I could tell you to tell you how different the year was, and it's back to Labor Day in Calgary. I'm in the hotel in Calgary, and I'm on the elevator going down. The elevator stops a couple floors below me. 3 players got on. I could tell they're players because they're all in Elks gear. They got masks on, and they sat, and I thought to myself, I have no idea who these guys are,
Right.
because I haven't seen them except for on the field with their helmets on and their numbers on. They have masks on. We haven't been able to have that one-on-one approach. So here I am, one of the radio voices of the team in an elevator with 3 players. I have no idea who they are, and they don't have any idea who I am as well. And it was just that's when it kind of struck me what a weird season it was, because you just never got to talk to players. You never got to talk to players one-on-one, and it really, I think it really hurt, not just in Edmonton but across the CFL. It hurt the storytellers who are getting the stories and talking to fans and sharing those stories, because there's so many great stories from players in the Canadian Football League, and they just never got out this year, or didn't get out as much as they normally do.
Yeah, it was at the start of the season, we're doing Zoom calls for the first week, and then we it's funny because they were supposed to have a scrimmage, I believe, on the first Saturday of camp. That got called off because of the smoke, and then only had one scrimmage. So I mean, right from week 1, it was just weird, right? But you're doing Zoom calls, and then the on-field setup was actually pretty good. It was better than Zoom. Then when the outbreak happened, we went back to Zoom for a couple of weeks, but everything was just, the travel was different, obviously. And I think at the start of the season, because the road or the teams that we were going to, their availabilities didn't happen the day before. They happened, 2 days before the game. And that kind of changed our plan, because usually we're going 2 days before the game. We're going the day before. Then we kind of went back to the 2 days again. And it was really cool in Ottawa, because we actually got to go to TD Place the day before, and we were the first road media to go to an availability. And Paul Lapalisse was quite cordial and very nice to us, and welcomed us. But we didn't really have a lot of that, and you miss that, and you kind of miss the interaction with the other team's media, because you get a lot of rapport with them, and you get a lot of nice info and just good camaraderie there. But we didn't have it. I mean, going back to Labor Day, it's funny when Morley's talking about Labor Day. I went the day before the game, and I've never done that before, because there's just no point going, Saturday, because the Stamps were doing really nothing on the Sunday, and that kind of made the trip a little weird. Now they won, the Elks won, so that drive home for once was rather lovely. And then after that, we know what happened. So yeah, it's I hope by the time we get to May that we're going to, be far enough ahead of this that we can start relaxing some protocols, because it was tough. And even, on the road, we, Morley and I didn't get together. And, Jerry Monajon from Post Media, he's on the trip as well. We didn't get together like we usually would. We kind of stuck to our own little, mini bubbles and to the hotel. And if we went out, we went back, rather quickly. And that was kind of tough as well. But, yeah. End of the day, you just had to be really fluid and really flexible, and we got through it. I think really well. But yeah, it's it definitely didn't make the job, I guess, a full experience, just because there's just so much you had to think about and adhere to. So, but anyway, we'll see what happens in 2022. I really hope we're going to be farther ahead of this damn thing.
And we don't want to come off as whiners, because, I mean, everybody in the world had to go through, similar things in their jobs, right? It was different for everybody, but it was still tough to deal with.
It's nice to hear different experiences, though, too, right? Like how you guys dealt with it and what changed in your lives, because you said everybody had something, but it's almost that way of relating to each other,
Mhm.
too, is, yeah, it was completely different. And yeah, I mean, I like Dave. I was grateful for football coming back, but at the same time, it just felt like you were back, but you had that separation of your family, and it was strange.
Yeah, no, it was in that respect. It felt very distant at times, and it was hard.
was-
But you know, I, the one thing that I think a lot of people have kind of had this mindset, and some haven't, unfortunately. But you know, you really have to narrow down your focus even more. So, what is my job today? You know, what is my job right now? You know, be where your feet are, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, and honestly, as tough as the week could be, and you know, the road was harder than home, because home I get to go home. We get to go home. The road was at times a challenge, and it really wasn't like a huge challenge, but it was just so different because we don't have the interaction we usually have. You know, because we're adhering to CFL protocols, and then Morley and I are adhering to our company's protocols, and we're just doing the best we can that way. But I think the narrow focus really helped me just to get through each moment. And I don't think I ever had a moment where I was like, felt really overly down after games. There might be some times that you kind of felt that way, just because it's like, oh, 30-3 in Winnipeg. That's great. But
I'm on the road for this.
but
Come
I'll tell you,
on,
like, I
guys.
felt,
Yeah.
and I don't know how Morley felt, but I kind of sensed that he probably felt the same way. When it was game time, it was fun again. And then you go through the flow of the game, and a lot of bad things happen, some good things happen. You know, it's not like every game was terrible. You know, I mean, there were some fun games to do. Those 2 games at home against Winnipeg were fun, and the game in Regina was fun. And then there's some games that were dogs. I mean, the game in Winnipeg was awful. The last 2 games of the 3 and 7 were dreadful. They were just awful games to call, even though the Elks won in Toronto. But a full disclosure, okay? The game in Vancouver, the final game of the season, and it went bad. I mean, they were down 14-0 in the first 5 minutes.
Yep.
I don't think it was even 5 minutes old. And honestly, first break, I looked at Moreland and I said, I just done. Like, I just don't know what I can do. Like, this is crazy. And that was the biggest mental hurdle I had to get over, is I had this feeling of, I don't want to do this anymore. But in your head, you go, you have to do this, Dave. No one cares about your feelings. You shouldn't even care about your feelings. Thank you very much, but you got to do your job. So, but it was very hard, because that was a very rough game, and almost predictable, to be honest. So anyway, but yeah, it was. You learned a lot of things. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to rely on Morley more, and just how to rely on the people around you. And there's the narrow focus really saved me a lot. It's like, what is my job from this time to this time, and then that's the only thing I'm focusing on right now.
The games are always the best part of the job, right? That's this past year even more so, because once we lit the rocket, that was the only thing normal, right? All season long, like the games were normal. Everything else around the games, from the travel with the protocols, from the interviews with the protocols, from weird thing. I'm such a creature of habit. It even set me off for the first 3 quarters of the season. We had to sit in a different place to watch practice, because the press box wasn't open to us, because that was for Tier 1 during the week, and even that set me off. I didn't enjoy that, because it's a different angle. It was on the other side of the field. It was in the corner, and it was just the games were what you lived for this year, because they were the only normal things that happened all season long in the job part of it. So the games, even though the results weren't good, it was certainly good to be doing it. And as Dave said, 21 was better than 20, but 21 was just, to me, it just kind of felt like a tease. It's like you're back, but you can't have everything. You can't have everything you wanted and everything you missed. To me, like the conversations with the players and talking to them and getting to know them and telling their stories, that to me is a big part of the job and what I really like to do. But couldn't do it this year, to a certain extent. I got a couple of times I got, one-on-ones on Zoom with some players, but that was about it. And at that point you're recording interviews and it's a whole different atmosphere. So, it was a weird year. It was a weird year, and just hoping next year is back to as close to normal as we as we can hope for.
Level. Yeah. I will give you guys credit. You pulled it off. Whenever I listened, it didn't sound like Dave was going to be like, "Screw this, they suck." Like it didn't sound that way. So good for you. Like,
I was a little worried.
Well, thank you for that. But
as much as we might have, yeah.
Fooled them again, Dave. We fooled them again.
I'm a professional.
Okay, Superfan, do you want to have any questions on the year before we get into the new news?
Any questions?
Yeah,
Fire away.
About anything for the year.
Is it over yet?
You go. Yes. Answer.
There's just so many. I think it's just get into the conversation and we'll go from there. There's a lot that are going to come up, especially about all the things we're going to be talking about in the next little bit.
Yes. Okay. So, a couple of things. We'll start with obviously the big news, which is of course the letting go of the president, the GM, and the coach. And we talked a little bit, preamble to getting on the show and some of the difficulties that each of those gentlemen faced and now are no longer here due to that. I guess my first question is to you guys, were you surprised that it was all three?
Yeah.
With you,
I think I was.
Okay.
And I heard before it happened, there was rumblings that someone was going. It might have been one, might have been two. And I heard three was on the table. I'm going, wow, to do all three, that's going to be tough. To do, to let go Brock Sunderland and Jimmy Elizondo was going to be tough with 2 years remaining. And you have that football operations cap, which is, I understand why it's there, but it's extremely problematic. Now, Chris Preston's salary doesn't count on that, but really what the organization did was they looked at the damage to the brand. And all you had to do is listen to Ian Murray, the board chair, who I thought was very honest and very candid. And I think it was well explained why they had to do this. And what I found interesting, how much talk was there about the on-field? How much talk was there about 3 and 11?
Yep.
It was secondary.
I agree.
It was secondary.
Yep.
This organization, the connection between the organization and the fan base, and Andrew, Mike, and Kayla, this better than I do. And I talk to a lot of fans, but I'm in the media and I'm kind of, I have a different focus than a fan. Even though I still want the Elks to win, I won't be afraid to admit that. I'm not an unbiased neutral. But it was clear the erosion of the relationship between the fan base and the team. It was slow over the last decade or so. I would say, since 2010 or 11. I think Ian Murray said that. It just completely erupted in 2021. People were just sick of it. And the club had every reason financially not to do it. They had every reason. They said they could have. Ian Murray could have come out and said, "We're not going to do it. We're going to give them one more year, and we're asking you to stay with us, and we understand this is not acceptable. And we're gonna try and do better," kind of thing. But they chose the morality and the ethics, the ethical reasons more than the on-field stuff. And I think that was a very bold move, and it makes the next decision somewhat difficult, and yet I think somewhat not difficult. So it was a really gutsy, bold move to make that drastic of change to get rid of three key positions.
Yeah, I was surprised too that it was all three, and the way it happened, especially after the season ended on a Friday. They held availability on Sunday, and both Brock Sunderland and Jamie Elizondo talked about moving forward, and I think we all assumed, okay, they've been told they're here because of what they said on Sunday, and then to hear what happened on Monday was really surprising. I think the thing that sticks out with me through it all the most is how the franchise listened to the fans. And I mean, there was an uproar, and you can't take everything you read on Twitter as gospel or on Facebook, because it's a toxic environment at times, as we all know. But I mean, the fans were unhappy. There was unrest among the fan base, and I think the fact that so many bought tickets and didn't show up for the final 2 or 3 home games really hit home with the board. And I think they decided that, hey, we got to listen to our customers here. We've got to do what they want. And make some changes, and they did that. So kudos to them, because it's a pretty brave move to make. You put a lot of pressure on your organization. Firing those 3 guys puts a lot of pressure on the organization, first off, to run as an organization without anyone in that leadership role, both on the business side. Well, they have people who came in on an interim basis, but it puts a lot of pressure on everybody to continue the franchise running. And Alan Watt's done a real good job, in the weeks since he was made the, I think he's the CEO or acting CEO or whatever his title, the COO, whatever his title is, and he's done a good job, and they've done a good job on the football operation side. But it puts a lot of pressure on everybody to do your job, plus chip in and do the other 3 jobs as well. And on top of all that, they have to search for new faces, 3 new guys to come in, or 2 possibly to come in and fill those roles. So it stretches the organization thin. It was a pretty brave move to make. And I hope at the end of the day, when they put everyone in their place, it works out well for the franchise, because this franchise has had a lot of things not to their doing, but a lot of things go wrong for them over the last 5 years. From, you go back to 17 and all the injuries they went through, and then, the name change and the pressure from that and the chatter all around that, the COVID situation, Scott Milanovic deciding he didn't want to coach here after he signed a contract and then decided he was going back to the NFL. A lot of things went wrong that really were out of their control. And I think this organization, they need a little bit of luck. They need a little bit of, they need the ball to bounce the right way for them a little bit, which it hasn't done in the last several years, really.
Well, I agree with you. They had a lot of those things. They didn't do a lot of things to help themselves, though, either. Like,
true.
So, Mike,
and at the end of the day, as the old saying goes, right? Your record is what your record is, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's even more than the record on the field, right? It's they had Fan Appreciation Day on the November 5th game versus Saskatchewan, and there wasn't a whole lot of appreciation that was shown. I mean, it's like discount on a bunch of food and drinks, and that's basically it. Other teams did some great things, but I think, like you said, it's not just one thing. It's so many things that happened this year between COVID, so people are already skittish about being there. The fact you had to be double vaccinated, and in the stands during the game, you noticed how much younger the average crowd was. You didn't see nearly as many people over the age of, say, 50 that you normally would see. And that's the bread and butter of the CFL, the name change, the coaching change, the record of the team, things that happened behind the scenes that had gotten out. They bring up Dwayne Mandrusiak all the time on social media and in the newspaper. Terry Jones brings it up all the time. And just all these things together, I think, just made a huge difference on why you were seeing the attendance go so far down in the last little bit, even though they were announcing, 23, 24,000 people. I mean, you guys were looking out at the crowds. There's no way there was that many people. It was like 8,000 at that point. And it's tough. So I'm hoping for a lot better things in 2022. And I think this is their chance to start making some right choices and some smart choices.
I agree. So let's talk about those, because no need to dwell on all that old crap.
Right.
Let's get to the new stuff. Like you said, Dave, let's move forward. We can flush 2021 now and carry on, and because it really was a pile of crap. So let's go to lots of new choices, lots of things being talked about. Of course, word kind of got out today that they're down to a couple of people that they're doing final interviews for. Sounds like is it Ted Govea? Is that the right name? Yeah, thank you. Ted Govea and Chris Jones in line for that GM role. Of course, if it's Chris Jones, then you're looking at a GM / head coach role.
Possibly DC, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's start with the fun on talking about this. Dave's like,
I
I'm
need some of
ready.
this.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
that's
ready
right.
to
Yeah,
make people mad at me.
I have a cider. I'm ready to go. Yeah. Okay. So let's make this easy and start with Morley. No. Morley,
What's the question, Andrew?
what do you think? What do you think about some of these names that are coming around, and kind of the process that they're going through to hire these guys? We know we have to get GM in place right away, and the president, they're looking, down the road, and there has obviously been some names there too. But what do you think as they're getting down to kind of these nitty gritties with GM head coach?
Well, it sounds like they've done a thorough search. It sounds like they've interviewed a lot of candidates. I don't know how many, but I know that there's been some interest and they've interviewed some people. And it sounds like they've been pretty extensive interviews over the last couple of days. And it appears it's Chris Jones or Ted Govea as the new GM. And it's two different routes, really, right? It's a guy with experience, a guy with a track record, a guy who will be your head coach as well, versus a guy who's been in the league for a long time, but has never been a general manager before, but has a pretty good track record in what he's done in player personnel and scouting. So, you got to decide which direction you want to go. And I know Dave and I were talking earlier today, and we kind of, we're talking about the fact that, okay, if you want the quick turnaround, maybe it's Chris Jones. If you want the patient turnaround, maybe it's Ted Govea. I'm not sure. You want to win as many games as possible in next season. There's no doubt about that, no matter who you hire, right? So it's up to the board, I think, to decide what's best for the football operations and for the business side of the team as well. And those two have to mix better, I think, moving forward. And I think they have to have more communication with each other and be available to stay transparent to the fan base, to be able to be out in the community, to go to things, to be involved in things. Although you couldn't really do a lot of that last year anyway, or the last 2 years because of COVID, obviously. So there is that part of it as well. But to me, it's a toss-up. I'm not really sure which way is the best way to go. I think both ways have been proven in past years around the league to be successful. Both have proven not to be successful. I like Chris Jones as a coach. There's no doubt about that. He's a good coach. He wins a lot of games. And if you go back to the last time the Elks had a season this bad was obviously 2013 when they went 4-14 and then brought Jones in. 2 years later, the next year they were in the West Final. The year after that, they win the Grey Cup. So he has that experience. He did it in Saskatchewan as well after a real bad year his first year and getting everything in place that he wanted. He built what is now a pretty good team in Saskatchewan as well. So there's arguments for both. Govea has a great track record as a talent evaluator and a guy who helped Winnipeg rebuild. He's been there for, I think, about 8 years or so. He's got a couple of Grey Cup rings. Also won a Grey Cup ring with Toronto in 2012 when he was, I think he was running backs coach and a Canadian scout, heading up Canadian scouting at that point as well. So they both have their good points and they both have their bad points. And I know I think if it's Chris Jones, everybody gets a little trepidatious about his track record of not hanging around longer than 2 or 3 years. But if you know it's going to happen, I mean, now you expect it. And if you have the right guys in place to step in for him, especially at the GM level, and I think if you hire him as a GM head coach, you got to have a real good assistant GM in place. I mean, like Saskatchewan had Jeremy O'Day, and when Jones left, O'Day was able to step up and move into that GM position, and they haven't really missed a beat. And I think if you do hire Jones, you got to have that guy in place as well, just in case he leaves. And who knows? Maybe Chris Jones. Let's be honest. He's looked around. He's looked around an awful lot in the last 6 or 7 years, right? And maybe he's in a position where he wants to settle down. He doesn't want to keep moving around, and he wants to run a franchise and continue to do so, and not, it's got to be tough on him and his life as well if you're moving every 2 or 3 years as well. So maybe he's to a position where he wants to settle down, and the board likes that and says, okay, why don't you settle down here and move forward with him? So just because he has left all of his jobs after 2 or 3 years doesn't mean he's going to do it again this time. So maybe it'll change. Who knows?
Well, there's
now we're going to go to Dave with the wrestling spin on this. Okay, no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, Ted Govea would be the face, and Chris Jones would be the heel. There you go.
Correct.
What?
There you go.
Yes.
He would be the bad guy.
I agree.
Okay.
Well,
I want to start.
I don't want to go so far as bad guy, but okay. Yes.
I know.
But
Okay,
yes, go ahead.
there you go. Well, some people I've been not talking to. I don't interact all that much on Twitter anymore. To people I don't follow or follow me.
Wise.
There's been a lot of that guy left us. That guy, there's a lot of scorn lover, is what I want to say.
Sure.
From 2015, and I understand that completely. But I'm going to park my thoughts on Chris Jones just for a second because I want to talk about Govia first. He's I look at him. He and Danny McManus, along with Kyle Walters, who is the GM, have done a great job with that roster. And I look at Govia. He arrived in 2013. The Bombers were bad. And I believe Mike O'Shea arrived in 14. Then he was a coach in 15. And then partway through 16, they started to really play well. And I remember because I think they were going to come to Edmonton and they were going to lose and they're going to get their ass kicked. And then Mike O'Shea was going to get fired during the bye week. The opposite happened.
Right.
Matt Nichols had a great game against Edmonton, and they won, and they haven't looked back from there. So Govia took over or helped when they took over or assumed the position of AGM. That was a terrible team with a bad roster, a bad culture, and he's a part of a group that built the best culture in the league. Now, they are the standard bearer. They are what you want to be if you're a football team. Calgary is close behind, I believe, but they are now who you want to be. They built a tremendous team. You look at their Canadian content, you look at their key positions, and how they fill them. They got the quarterback in Kolaros. They got the coach in Mike O'Shea, who's his personality of Melba Toast, but he gets the buy-in from everybody. And is it any shock that the Bombers did as well as they did with the coaching staff they have off of a year off? And maybe we overplayed the Elks because of all this. We looked at talent alone. They should be better, and they should have been better. But, the coaching staff, brand new with a coach that just showed up in February, right? In Elizondo, not his fault, but, and that's just the way it is. So I like what Govia has done along with Walters and McManus. And I think he would be a very good general manager. And I know what irritates me about CFL fans sometimes. Well, I don't know him, so he can't be that good. Knowing him doesn't mean a damn thing. It's what he's done. Okay, his record is it's proven. He's been in Winnipeg for 8 years. Took over, assumed the AGM role for a bad football team, and now they're the best football team in the country. Chris Jones, though. Chris Jones.
Here we go.
Chris Jones.
I'm just waiting for Superfan to start throwing comments in. It's coming. Yeah.
I got nothing bad to say yet.
He's the
Nothing
guy.
yet? Okay.
He's the guy. In my opinion, he's the guy the team wants. I believe from day one, there's enough on the board that wants this man as the guy to lead. I truly believe that. And I do believe there's a slight hesitation from what I'm hearing within the board. They're not sure if they want to go with a first-time GM again. And we know the situation with Brock Sunderland. It was a sudden thing with Ed Hervey leaving or getting fired, and they had to quickly fill that position. So Brock Sunderland at the time was the best candidate available. I don't know if they want to go that route right now. I just don't. Chris Jones comes with a lot of warning labels. He might leave again.
That's the title of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of warning labels.
But, I look at his track record, and everywhere he goes, winning happens. I think he turned around a Saskatchewan Roughriders team, and I think in a lot of respect that is still his team, even in 2021, and they're pretty good. And I think from the cost savings standpoint, we can't ignore the football operations cap. Okay, he will be, if he gets hired, your GM, your head coach, likely your defensive coordinator, and you probably only have to pay him just under $700,000 for that, maybe a bit less,
right?
Instead of spreading that out over 3 people, and then you're spending more than that. But unfortunately, we have to bring that in because this football ops cap is just brutal, in my opinion. You know, the Elks did what they believe was a moral and ethical thing to do more than what was on the field. And unfortunately, they're getting penalized for it. I know it's the way it's set up. It's not the league penalizing, but I think we're seeing the flaw in this. How can you cut a player and scrub his salary from your books, but you have to keep on 2 members of your football operations department, and it's dead money on your cap? It doesn't make any sense to me, especially when, or, you know, I get it and I don't get it. There's got to be some ways around this, you know. There's got to be some.
There might be.
Yeah, there. Yeah, and I think that's what Ian Murray said on the day when everyone was fired. He said, "We're talking to the league about this, how to handle this." And I think to sell to fans off of a bad year, I think Chris Jones is the one to do it, in my opinion. That's just how I feel. I'm not trying to base an opinion necessarily on this is how I feel, but I'm trying to base it on things that I've heard and the situation here. And I just think the situation calls for someone who's been there, done that, and has a track record of turning things around rather quickly. Now, comparatively to 2013 to 2022 or 2021, sorry. In 2013, that was a 4-14 team, but they had something there. The magic was starting to formulate. They lost a lot of games,
a lot.
They had a core. They were talented. This group, as we sit, it's a bad roster. So I'm saying whoever gets hired 2022, Elks fans, you might want to buckle up, brace yourself. It may not be the season that you think it should be. Maybe we'll get surprised, but it's about building something. And I think Chris Jones built something special in Regina, and he left, unfortunately. And I think he would, I don't know. I don't know if Chris Jones ever regrets anything, but that seemed like a silly thing, now when you look back on it, although, he got the chance to be in the NFL and be a coach. But, I think he's a proven commodity in this league. And about the community side of things, I know he's a guy that if the world was ending, he would have no idea about it because he's sitting in his office and all he's doing is preparing for the next game. He would, that's just the kind of coach he is. And a lot of football coaches are like that. I remember enough practices, post-practice, when, fans would come and watch and, I brought my kids and can I get an autograph? He was so accommodating. He said, no problem at all. Whoever you want to talk to, you can talk to. So I do think he does understand that side of it, that, the community side of it enough that he would be fine as long as he remembers Monday Morning Magic.
All right, Mike.
And
let's be honest, he made a mistake on Monday Morning Magic, but Ed Hervey also made a mistake by not stepping up and saying, no, we have to go, right? The whole organization made a mistake on that money, and you can't hold him totally responsible for that. That can't follow him forever. He made that one. He had no idea what it was about. He had no idea what it meant to the community. The team should have, told him, said, hey, we have to go to this. This is what we do every year. So that being aside, I think there's a little leeway, and we can't keep going back to Monday Morning Madness, but they have to do it. That's for sure. And the backlash I hear about Chris Jones is always about how he left. And I mean, I blame Gary Lawless because he broke the story before it happened during Grey Cup week, right? And no one would have known about it at that point, and it would have been just a regular move. But because it came out before the Grey Cup game, everyone was a little bit up in arms about it. And let's be honest, he was the head coach of the Edmonton Elks, or the Edmonton football team at the time, and he got an offer to have a better job with a lot more money as head coach and general manager and vice president of football operations in Saskatchewan. It was a better job offer for more money, just like you. If you got that offer, you'd probably take it. And you can't really hold his feet to the fire for that, because he furthered himself and he did the best thing that he wanted to do for his career and for his family, and that's all you can say. Everybody else in the same position probably would have done the same thing. We've seen it happen so many times over the years in the Canadian Football League. So I don't really blame him for that. I just didn't like the way it came out as it was rumored before the game, and how, kudos to Gary Lawless, who's a great reporter, obviously, and stood on the sidelines and said it's happening, and most of the staff is going with him, and the guy on the other side of the field is going to be the new head coach in Edmonton, and Jason Moss. And kudos to him, because he had a great scoop and he nailed it all. But I think that's what sits more with everyone, in a negative light, is the fact that the way it happened and the way it came out, instead of just happening, the week after the season, saying, yeah, he's talking with Saskatchewan about this job. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't think you can hold him. You can't hold his feet to the fire for everything that he's done in the past forever, right? And I think he's kind of talked about, the second year they did go to Monday Morning Madness, and he realized what a special event it was, and kind of talked about the fact that, yeah, we probably should have gone last year, and we'll keep going. So, there's more to it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Always is.
Mike, I'm going to let you start first, because I have a ton of things, but I want to give you a chance to chat, and then we'll go to Commish.
Sure. One question I have is, the board had said at the very beginning that the GM they get will be someone that will be living in Edmonton. Chris Jones, people in the chat are referring to him as Chris Suitcase Jones. Will he get a place to live here? Or is he going to live out of a hotel again? Is he bringing his family here? That's something that they said was very important to them. Ian Murray had mentioned that as well during the actual presser. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And if that's something that's still important to them, that may sway them away from Chris Jones. Or maybe he's changed. A lot of people say that if he does get the, general manager, head coach, defensive coordinator, chief cook, and bottle washer jobs here, there's nothing for him to get promoted to within the league. But I don't know if the league is his end game. Is something he wants to get back to the States? I don't know. Only he can answer that. And in the interviews, I would imagine that that's going to come up. They say the best predictor of future events is, past behaviors. So, that's all we can kind of go on. So has he grown and changed? I don't know. That being said, I think Chris Jones has proven himself everywhere he's gone. And he's not only turned around a lot of teams, but he's also put things in place so that they will survive him leaving. Maybe we weren't the greatest example of that at that point. In 2016, though, we had a pretty solid year, and then 2017 as well. So, I'm not totally against the concept of it. I'm not going to, given my season tickets like you see on social media all the time, that I'm going to give up going to games if someone does this on the team. Ted Govea, on the other hand, I think, do you want something that's going to be a big splash now and maybe settle down after a couple of years? Or do you want something that's going to build slowly like they did in Winnipeg? And now they are a contender and, in fact, a favorite to win the Grey Cup every year at this point. As we go into 2022, if you asked, 10 people who think is winning the Grey Cup next year, they think that Winnipeg's going to three-peat. And there's a very good chance they could do that. And that's because they've built it, some people would say, in the right way. So I don't know. It's going to depend who we get as the president, how it mitigates who we get as GM and head coach. So there's a lot of pieces to this. And I think that we're going to, it's a shame that we didn't find out today, because it would have been great to talk about, but they always do it the day after we podcast anyway. So we'll find out tomorrow, and then we can have another good discussion about
this.
And
what you're saying about, it matters to some fans that he lives here.
Well, this is the board that was saying that.
I know that.
Fans.
I know. I understand. But I'm saying is the cross section of fans care about different things. So maybe the board cares about that, but maybe a fan, there's a section of fans that go, I don't care. I just want to win. Like, I'm the one that's spending my money anyway, and investing my time watching the team. I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about Chris Jones over the last few years to know if he's changed as much. I know, like, he was the head coach at South Pittsburgh at the high school team, and he got the offer to go to Toronto. He could, he left very quickly, right? So yep. I think there's still an element of that within him, that he is always looking for maybe the next opportunity. I think he's had his eye on this franchise for a while, though. That's another thing too, is I think he's been watching what has been going on here from afar. And when Milanovic left, he wanted to come here, even though it was kind of blown up a little bit. But I think he's had his eye on this kind of position for a while. I know there's talk that maybe he would, stay in Toronto and be the, what John Murphy was, which is basically the GM, with Mike Pinball Clemens. But I think he still wants to coach. I think there's still a fire with him that he wants to coach. And, the thing that I debate, I don't know how Morley feels, but, and I've debated this every which way, because this is a tough one, even though I feel the answer's obvious. What can this fan base handle now compared to 2, 3, 4 years from now? If they struggle in 22 with Ted Govia, are people going to be patient enough with Ted Govia and go, well, now you got another newbie with who knows who's going to be the head coach, when you had, the chance to get a Chris Jones, for example, and let's eliminate Chris Jones. Is this fan base going to be patient with someone like Ted Govia? Because we all know who he is, but there's a lot of the fan base that doesn't and won't honestly put in the easy work to find out who he is. They just care about W's and L's. I don't know if this fan base can handle it, to be honest with you. And it could be a tough year in 2022 because the roster turnover is going to be pretty significant, in my opinion. And
as it should be.
Yeah. So I just don't know if the fan base can handle, a tough start to 2022, or it doesn't go the way they think with someone who has never done it before. And that's what I think. And I think maybe that's more important than what happens 2 to 4 to 5 years from now.
But even struggling, if you go 6 wins, that's an improvement over 3, but is that enough?
Yeah. And do you trust the man in charge? Do you trust a Chris Jones who's been there, done that before, and has been through that? Or do you trust a Ted Govia who's been through that, but has never been the guy, So I think that's...
Jones's record is certainly more tangible because he's been the man in charge, right? Govia hasn't been in that position where he's the man in charge. And there's no doubt Chris Jones knows football players, and he finds football players, and he brings them to the Canadian Football League, and he not only finds good, talented guys, but he finds guys to fit his system and the way he wants them to play. And you can't deny that at all. And I think that's one point that, he has in his favor. Govia, though, he was with a group that brought a lot of great players in. There's no doubt about that in Winnipeg as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see which way they go. The Jones angle, though, I think is, I don't know if you call it the safer bet or not, just because he's got the track record of winning, and he's been able to turn couple of franchises, the last 2 franchises he went to, he was able to turn them around in the Elks and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So he's done it before. Govia was part of that turnaround in Winnipeg, but just a small part of it, right? As the one of 2 assistant general managers to the GM and everything. So I don't know. It's interesting. I really don't know which way they're going to lean on this, because it's a hard choice to make. I mean, it's a hard choice to make, and they got to get it right too, right? Because they don't have a lot of room for error moving forward.
So what I basically just heard you say is that Chris Jones has the chance to be the next Henry Burris. He just turns around teams, gets there, turns around all the teams, right?
There you go.
Just ask Henry. He'll tell you.
Just ask Hamilton. Anyway.
That's right. See, I'm pretty good at that.
I see you, Andrew.
Yes.
Stuff it.
Yeah, thanks.
There it is.
That's
you need
the
the
title
point,
of the
though.
podcast.
You need the point.
That's right. You need a point.
Yeah. I turned around that team. Kamish, what do you think about all this before I rant on? No.
Yeah, I know. I already know what you want to say, so it's like, how do I form an opinion without kind of tipping on?
No.
Well, okay, so I think I'm in a different situation. I'm in a different grouping where I obviously am a millennial. I come from a different generation. I see different things from my generation and younger, but also the older. So I'm kind of in this weird mix of people, especially on social media, where I see maybe different opinions that, come from different areas. I think the Elks have a really, it's obvious, but a really difficult task, because who do you appease right now? because I think with the older generation, perhaps is looking for that rock foundation, that slow, steady build of bringing back the culture and bringing back what this organization used to be, having the community built around it. Whereas I see my generation and the younger wanting to be appeased immediately and instant gratification. So those W's, in my opinion, not like from my opinion, but what I see as more important is the winning culture. Not so much the community. As much as they want to boast on about it, it's always the instant gratification coming from that winning mentality. And the Elks have been quite, they want to attract that younger crowd, clearly, with some of the halftime, talent that they've brought.
Hanson was good. Come on.
I heard Hanson
Hey,
was good.
I thought it was a good move because you could clearly see what crowd they were trying to attract. And you know what, the amount of money, a little ridiculous, but I can see where they were going with it. And I applaud trying to do something. But they're really in a bind right now of what way to go, because again, like you guys said, with CJ, you're probably going to get those wins and you're going to get that instant gratification and you're going to get that instant bill. But how long is that going to last? And is it going to last? And can we maintain that? But again, how many players are you going to keep? And what kind of culture are you going to build around the players? What kind of locker room are you going to have? Are you going to keep the same coaches? Like, it's such a big question right now that I'm an old soul. So I'm kind of, even though I'm a millennial, I feel like I'm more in the different generation because I would prefer that slow build, that rock, that building that winning team, that winning culture, that winning organization under a steady burn that lasts a little bit longer than that instant gratification of getting those W's. But then 2 years down the road, it's going to be back in the same situation or a different situation. And I just think there's a lot that this organization has to contend to right now. And I honestly don't envy them because it's a huge task. And I don't know. I personally actually think they're going to go with Chris Jones personally. But yeah, it's a weird, you can't appease all generations, but who are you going to target mostly? Like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts of seeing things from a different perspective, because I know that you're going to lose a lot of people if you don't start winning. Unfortunately, I don't agree with that. I'm not a fair weather fan. I stick with my team through thick and thin, regardless if they suck. I mean, my friggin' Saints aren't. Don't tell me what happened in that game. But they're not. I mean, we lost Drew Brees, and that's a huge thing. But I'm not changing teams because something, is going awry, right? So, yeah, it's sad and unfortunate, and I think this organization blew up on both points where they sucked and then they sucked as a whole. So, but in saying that, when you blow things up, you can start fresh. But I just don't know if the younger generation wants to wait for a winning team.
You know what, Kayla, to your point, and your points are all well taken, I think you can do it quickly because the quicker you raise the bar of expectation, the faster everyone in the organization comes up to that bar. If they hire whoever they hire, if they win 10 games next year, then the bar is there. Now, every team after that has to try and hit that bar with that group of players that are together. So you don't have to go 3 wins, 6 wins, 10 wins. You can go 3 wins to 10 wins.
Yeah.
And you can set that bar early and you can maintain that for the next several years. It doesn't always have to be a steady climb up to where you want to be as an organization.
Of course.
So
of course.
It can work both ways. It obviously, we saw in Winnipeg, it was the slow build, right? But we saw here, from 2013 to 2014 and 15, it was a climb, and you can't say that didn't put pressure on the teams in 2016 and 2017 to keep up with the bar that was set in 14 and 15.
Well, and that's why too, like, I appeal to anyone in my generation and younger to just not look at the game so much as just a game, but to get involved in the CFL, because that's what gripped me. I love football, dearly with my whole heart. But it's the CFL that has kept me so entwined with, like sometimes the teams aren't so great, but it's the culture that's built around it that is so fascinating to me. Like Grey Cup completely changed the way I viewed the CFL in 2018. So I just hope that, I just appeal to anyone who is my age and younger to actually experience, and that's what the Elks really need to improve on, to is game day experience, because man alive, when you get hooked, you hooked.
I love that. All right, so two questions that I have. And let me preface this by saying I am not against Chris Jones being the head coach and GM. I understand the move, and I can find a way behind it. One of the things that you talked about though early, Dave, was you said that when they let everybody go, do you notice how they didn't mention the 3-11? Did you notice how it wasn't focused on the the play on the
Well, I
field?
said it was secondary.
That was
They
It's
talked
secondary,
about it, but
right?
it was
Like,
secondary.
yeah. So the main issue is this disconnect with the fans. Can Chris Jones help to fix that?
Well,
That would be my question for him too. Like, I understand he can put a winning product on the field. I know that he's really good at building a defense. I don't know on the offensive. He doesn't have a Mike Riley this time, so that worries me a little bit, because I know that, like you said, he's very good at finding guys that can play his system, and especially on defense. I think he's very good at that. I don't know about the rest of the team. I don't want, my all-star receiver now playing defensive back. Like there's a lot of things that Chris Jones did in Saskatchewan that brought a lot of kind of scandal to that team.
yeah.
And the last thing that we need right now is any type of those types of. We've dealt with scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal from probably 2010 on, and in the last 4 years it's been a gazillion of them. We want to get back to talking about football on the field, but we also want to make sure that, that connection is there, and it's not any of this stuff that's happening. That what are they doing now? Like, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So those are my two big concerns. So am I way off base on that?
Well,
Probably.
I think the connection to the fan base, I think, is the number one issue facing this team. Is the culture of, we value the fan, and I don't think fans felt very valued in 2021. And
No.
I think for for a number of years it was starting to erode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, how connected did you feel to Chris Jones in 14 and 15? I'll ask you that. You know,
Not very.
but were they a good football team?
Sure.
Is that, and I don't know if it's Chris Jones' job now as a GM. I think it comes more into focus that you have to have that, help to have a bit of that connection point with the fans. But I think we're talking about the president role, that it's going to be that person's job to really rebuild that back. And a part of that is winning football and getting football fans excited about the product that they see.
Fair.
So, you know, so when we talk about, will Chris Jones be able to connect the fans? Well, I mean, I think when he has to do it, he'll do it. And I think we have seen small sample sizes that when he is out in the community, he did it well. And then he's like, yeah, no, he's a football coach. He's like, can we get this over with so he can go back and game plan for Friday? Every coach does that. But I think we have to put it in perspective here. The president of this team is going to be the steward to make sure that he sets the table, sets the bar, and that includes Chris Jones. This is the standard that we set. It's a little problematic that you hire your president after
Right.
your GM,
Sure.
but you have to do it. Like, if this is the consequence of the decision that they made, you can't wait till the end of January or middle of January to hire your GM when free agency is staring you in the face. You can't do it. But, the president, it's going to be his or her role to say, you need to reach this bar, And this is our connection point to the community. This is how we're going to do it. This is your role, Chris. But your role, Chris, is to win football games. That's his primary goal, is to win football games.
And winning solves so many problems, right? Everyone feels closer to their team when they can brag about it, right? Whether you are or not. I mean, there's not many 2-win, 3-win, 4-win teams in pro sports or pro football that people go, well, at least they're in the community a lot, right? It's all about winning. When push comes to shove.
Wasn't that us in 2013? They still sucked, but hey, at least they were connected.
When push comes to shove, it's about winning. And winning gets you closer to the community because winning brings more people out, and that means more people have fun at the games. Once you start to win, you bring fans out, and then you have to keep them there. Then you have to hook them. Then you have to prove that it's not just winning that brings you to the ballpark. It's the atmosphere that you have and the fun that you have while you're at the ballpark.
It's handsome.
But winning is the baseline. Winning is the baseline. I mean, that sets the stage for everything.
And to be fair, when I met Chris Jones, he was actually quite nice to me.
Yeah.
But it was just that one off.
Dave will back me up on this too. Like, I never had any problems with Chris Jones when he was here. He was very good to us. He doesn't give you long sound bites like some other coaches. Like, you could ask Jason Moss a question and he'll give you a minute-long answer. You could ask the same question to Chris Jones and he'll give you a 12-second answer. The answers may both be good, but people think just because he's a little brash in his answer that it doesn't mean he doesn't care. Doesn't mean he doesn't like doing it. That's just the way he is. He just doesn't give long answers, right? I mean, Dave, we didn't have any issues at all with Chris Jones. He was good to us in his time here. There's no doubt about that.
Our first pregame meeting was pretty bad, but he didn't know us, we didn't know him. But I'll tell you, after that initial meeting, before, I don't know which game it was, I think it was the first regular season game. Every pregame meeting was so valuable with Chris Jones, and he was very, very good and very, very candid.
Okay. Well, I think that was one of my concerns, and I mean, obviously the concern is still there. Will he stay, and are we in 2 years trying to rebuild? But you did say, Morley, just put the right other guys in place that they can step up when it happens, right?
And really, isn't that the case with any coach, any GM you hire? That
yes,
they
except
could
for the
leave at
last
any
time that he left here, he took everybody that would have taken his spot.
Yes.
That was what the problem was, right? And I think that's why you get the scorned lover. And I think our good friend Ryan Ballantyne on Twitter today said, Ryan.
Oh dear.
Ryan Ballantyne. Come on, you love him.
Okay.
Hey,
Ryan.
Not Mike Jones.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, not Mike Jones. Yeah, and he said there's a far difference from an amicable divorce as compared to knowing that the person was cheating on you and left you before you even talked about it, and that kind of was where we were at as far as CJ left here last time, right? So I think there is an emotional connection to that, and I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing. I'm just saying that it's. But I agree with you, Morley. He was going to a better spot, and I don't begrudge him that at all.
And it comes back to Gary Lawless again, right?
The way it
ruined
happened
it for everybody.
The way it happened was just god awful. So and he's continued, like, he's never been in a spot more than 3 years. I don't think ever. So, but if you plan for that, great, and that means that the president hire has got to be huge. So,
but not every team's had that, right? I mean, you look at Calgary. Calgary's had the same two people there for years, and it's not that they haven't had the opportunities. People talked about Dave Dickinson being offered head coaching positions while he was still offensive coordinator, and he turned them down because he knew there was that structure in place where he was eventually going to move up, right? There was that strategy they had in place. The people have been talking about he was offered the GM and head coaching role here, and again, he turned it down. So it's not that people won't take a position that's going to be way more money than everything else if they know that they are valued where they are. And maybe that was it too, right? Maybe he didn't feel like he was being valued. It was just, or maybe he's just, that's not his thing.
Right. Entirely possible. Absolutely. So, oh my goodness. so many angles on this, and
Oh, yeah.
this is
And there may not be a wrong answer. I mean, we might be able to win with both of them, right?
So, and it's interesting too, Mike, because you have 5 people who hate the notion of Chris Jones, then you have another 5 people who love it, and I'll tell you what: if they hire Ted Govia, the same thing would happen. 5 people will go, "Great, you didn't hire that idiot Chris Jones," and you have 5 people going, "Are you an idiot for not hiring Chris Jones?" There's no
100%.
simple answer to this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
Win-win or lose-lose.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think the thing at the bottom of all this, they're both extremely good candidates. If it is down to those 2 guys, they're both extremely good candidates who have been in the league for a long time and know what they're doing. They just looks like from the surface, and obviously we don't have the track record on Govia because he's never been a GM before, but it just looks like they just kind of do it in different ways. And who's to say Govia wants to do exactly or feels that this franchise needs to do what Winnipeg did? Maybe he says we can. Maybe he has a plan to fix this quickly too. And maybe he says, and especially with free agency, right? I mean, 140% of the league are free agents, right? So it might be easy to just go out and sign whoever you want because of all the one-year contracts that have been in place. And it's certainly, I think it's easier to turn a team around now than it was 5 or 6 years ago when there wasn't as many free agents out there. It's a terrible problem that the league has to address, but they're obviously not going to address it this year. So there's a chance that you can go out there and get the short-term fix this season and maybe turn a franchise around pretty quickly. And, I mean, Chris Jones can do it. I think Ted Govia can do it as well. I mean, it's just the board has to decide which direction do they want to go. They want to go with the experience, or do they want to go with the first-timer? Do they want to go with the guy who also serves the role as head coach, or do they want to go with the guy who's going to have to go out and hire a head coach? And who he wants to hire probably plays a role in this as well.
Yeah.
What if it's Chris Jones?
Is there a way they can get them both? I mean, I saw
it's a promotion.
Jamie Nye tweeted today that when the Riders were looking for their new GM, their short list was Chris Jones, it was John Murphy, and it was Jeremy O'Day, and they ended up hiring them all in different roles.
Right.
And flash forward 4 years, O'Day's now the general manager and doing a fine job. So maybe there's a way they get them both in.
Right.
the problem with that, my concern, there's a cap. There wasn't a cap back then.
Yeah.
The
What happens
football.
if you go
Yeah.
over?
Yeah.
But regardless, you're going to have to hire somebody to work in the front office with Jones as GM and coach, because he can't do the daily work that a GM has to do because there's not enough hours in the day. He has to do the daily work that a defensive coordinator and a head coach has to do. So he needs help in the front office. So they're going to have to hire somebody anyway. So maybe there's a way. I don't know.
Yeah. And they might have him already. I mean, Chris Hagerman was the one that he's the director of football ops. He's the one that negotiated the Grimes deal. Now, that's an easier deal to do because Aaron Grimes is playing for one team and one team only for the rest of his career. And that's the Edmonton Elks. And he's probably going to live here year round. And, he's interested in being with the organization post playing career. But Chris has been around for a long time too, and has done a really good job. So that might be someone that's on the rise too in this league, and we just don't really talk about.
What happens if you go over the cap?
I have to look that up, but
but is it if it's dollar for dollar for the first 150,000
on the players cap, right?
On the operations cap,
is it?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's a number. I've heard that number thrown out. So
or
if
maybe
that's the case, then
maybe it's an 8th round draft pick. Who knows? Like, I mean, or maybe it's a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a conditional fine on the condition that you don't do it again.
Trust me, that suggestion, Mike, has been suggested to me before. All this happened. Even when Rock Sunderland and Jamie Elizondo were still part of this team, it's like, cares about the ops cap? Go over it. Just pay the penalty. Get it over with. I mean, you're trying to turn your franchise around. Go pay the penalty. That'd be a bold move, but.
And I know for a fact the Elks were willing to go over the cap to keep Mike Riley. They were like going to put it on their book. Right. We're going over the cap if we can keep Mike Riley. So it's not like it hasn't been thought of before. Yeah, so if the penalty is not severe and you feel you can pay it, then pay it and do what you want to do.
Yeah. The luxury tax then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, is there anything that we haven't touched on that's in the chat? I know there's probably lots of chat
A lot.
going on, and it's
There's a
going to be
lot
forever.
of chat.
And we have a few other things we still need to get to. But was there anything that is just way, that we haven't already chatted about?
Let me go through. I think the most pressing thing that has been talking about is admiring the growing of both Dave and Morley's hair. So that's been
Excellent. That's good.
It's the longest it's been in months, actually.
I know. That's what they're saying. Like growing it out, it's looking good.
Dave's growing it out. I'm getting rid of it. That's perfect. Yeah.
Between the two of you, it's a hair sharing program. So
That's right.
So that's good. Trying to think what else we've got in here. There's a lot of talk about Chris Jones, as we expect. Makes people. He's very polarizing, right? It seems to be.
And right
absolutely,
there, like
he's my guy, or I can't handle him being the guy.
He's engaging the fan base right there. He's not even got the job yet, and he's already got the fan base talking about the team. So there's something. There's something to that, right? I mean, I tweeted out when the rumor came out, Chris Jones could be the next GM and head coach, and I said, well, there's 100% of Elks fans who are against this, and 100% of Elks fans who are for it. I mean,
right.
he's just an engaging person to talk about, and
pitchforks or flowers.
It can't be all bad, right?
So the side of torches.
Write that down for the pitchforks or flowers. I like that.
So, and most of it's talking about what we've all been talking about. It's will he stay or won't he? We don't know, because in the past that's been his MO. He's almost like a mercenary for hire. If the first junior college from the U.S. comes along and says we need a head coach, is he gone? And if he does, is it going to be like May 15th of 2022?
Here's my simple answer. I don't know, and no one knows.
No one knows.
But, I can tell you this. Most players that have played for him love him.
It's true. Very true.
And even offensive players. I mean, Mike Riley could tell you stories about how he tried to mess with him during practice and the gamesmanship that would happen, right? And players love playing for Chris Jones too, and he's not the most finely tempered man that you would ever meet at times. He's definitely got a fuse and it will go off. And Morley and I have seen that at practice a few times. Remember that one practice where they pulled him off early and he said, they were on the field for half an hour. And we're like, wow, they were so good today. I think it was right before Labor Day in 15. And we go down there and go, well, did you rehab today? He's like, no, I was sick of them. So I said, go in the locker room because they were not doing what I'm telling them to do. I said, I don't want to see you. Then he's like, trust me, we'll be prepared. And they lost, but they were prepared. So, yeah. But,
Chris Agar says I'm just going to say, if CJ's the heel, Dave is now Bobby Heenan. So.
Perfect.
There we are.
Perfect, humanoids.
Nice. Oh my! A couple more years of COVID, I might be Andre the Giant, or at least wide enough to be. I don't know.
The Big Show, maybe.
Yeah, the Big Show, possibly a little better. Maybe.
Home.
What was the other? Now I can't remember his name. The big guy that wore the black one-sided. Come on, Dave, help me out. Bald guy with great big. Anyway, whatever.
What?
It'll come to me. Carry on, Mike.
Mark Henry.
Mark Henry. No, he was a bodybuilder, or he was a weightlifter. I mean, he's
the father of a hand. So that's.
I'm going back to like the 80s. It's okay.
Oh,
sorry.
Excellent. Just a lot of people talking. Anyone that can win, this is Chris Agar, anyone that can win and encourages a community connection will attract both casual fans and keep the old stalwarts. Let's face it, they did a lot of things to screw up this year. There seems to be a real disconnect with the fans because they didn't do anything to keep those fans, it seems like. Taking down the pictures of Moon and Kepley and all the greats outside of the stadium, that was a real miss for me. I don't understand why they did it. I know it's an obvious point for me to talk about keeping the history of the team.
On brand,
but it just seems like
I don't know if that was a slap to the history, more so a slap that they wanted to put their new logo up. They wanted to have their new logo up and their new name up more than anything. And it didn't surprise me at all, and I wasn't shocked by it or offended by it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the plan was to put some pictures back up around the building anyway.
They might be
afterwards.
I know that the fan base was very upset about, like, the brand seemed to be about, this is the brand and there is nothing else before, and Edmonton fans are very attached to their history.
Yeah.
They, I mean, that is to them like losing the EE logo and not using it at all really this year, I think was also a bit of a calculated risk on their part, and I think it missed.
Well, that even hurt me, and I'm not an old fan at all. But even I have built such a connection to that EE in this short amount of time that I was actually disappointed because it means so much to me, right? So,
I wonder if you'll see it as part of the uniform next year when they finally get around to doing that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll absolutely see. Especially when they redesigned the new logo with the new version of the EE.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was very surprised they didn't use it.
Right.
So, a lot of people asking if the team starts winning, is that enough to attract new young fans? I don't know if anyone can really answer that. We can guess.
It's a league problem, really. It's not just an Elks problem. It's a league problem.
100%.
I think the partnership with Genius Sports will do much more than what the XFL was promising they would do, or not promising, but pitching they would do.
Right.
Because Genius has been around for a few years, and they are very, very good. If you look them up, and I mean, the NFL uses them for a lot of their stats innovations, and they are very, very, very reputable. And there's a lot of people that are in the sports business that know them very well and said this is an absolute hit for the CFL that they were able to get on board with Genius. But that's awesome. Why we're talking, like what modifications do we need to make to the game? 4 downs, 3 downs. Personally, I think they should not go to 4 downs. That should be the very, very last thing they ever think about. But again, it's not an Elks problem necessarily. I think you have 9 teams that are worried about this, and even in Regina, and maybe it's not the Riders don't have this as much of a problem as the Elks do. It's still a problem there as well because Morley and I did the game in November, and even in the West semifinal, I mean, it wasn't sold out.
Yeah,
it was
very
alarming,
shocking,
right? So there's a lot of why that has to be answered. This is really, there's been a few, going back a few years why fans are not showing up. They're watching it, but they're not going to the games, and COVID didn't help at all. So, but
Hamilton was sold out, was it not?
Yes, it was.
What's the seating capacity variation between Saskatchewan or Regina and Hamilton?
Hamilton's less, I think. Yeah. I think they're in the 20s and Saskatchewan's in the 30s, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Okay.
What else we got here? By the way, Chris Hagar and Tim Capper both simultaneously said, Andrew, it's King Kong Bundy.
There you go. That's the one I'm talking about. There we go.
Attaboy. Count to 5.
Yeah. Problem solved.
Yeah. Was he not married with children? Anyway.
That was his brother.
Hey, go ahead. Yeah.
He was on Married with Children once. It was funny. Anyway, Leanne is
Hello, Leanne.
Asking how long. There it is. How long do the board members hold their seats? Perhaps it's time to change the board up a bit. They were talking about diversity. Maybe they could use a little more diversity. And if you look at the pictures of the 9 board members, not the most diverse group of people you ever saw, for sure.
I volunteer as tribute.
There we are.
You're in. If it was up to me.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks.
And Tim Capper says 11K difference in the 2 stadiums you're asking.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, Mike, do you want to quickly do some horrid items, and then we'll talk a bit about free agents, and then we can let these guys go to bed, because Morgan's got to get up early. I don't want to make this
as he does.
Early.
It's
We're
true.
Making it hard on him.
Okay. And now needs Leanne. He needs a cold shower. Okay.
Okay.
So exactly. Everyone knows I love to collect a lot of team photos of the team from as far back as I can go up to present. I've got team photos from the 19th century up to 2020, up to 2019 now. So 2021, hopefully. Yeah. Not yet, but they're coming, I'm sure. So I managed to talk to somebody that got something that was a little special for me. I think the greatest team this league has ever seen is the 1981 team, which celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. If you look at the people that are on that team, it's absolutely outstanding. So I managed to get something from that 1981 team that it was a little extra special, and this is a lovely team photo of, hopefully you can sort of see that. There's a lot of reflection of the screen there. So there we go.
Yeah.
So if you can
perfect.
see that signature up on the top, what is that, top right?
Dan Kepley, yes.
Yeah. So this was from his collection. Every player is awarded or is given a team photo with it's quite nicely printed, as well as the names of all the teammates on there. I've got 4 of the 5 dynasty years, 78, 79, 81, and 82. So this again is my all-time favorite team, and anyone that saw them play probably understands why. And if you look at the 12 to 20 guys that are in the Hall of Fame or on the Wall of Honor, it's not hard to see. So that was kind of a neat one to get. And then I just got this today. I was showing people before we started recording. In the 60s, they used to have these things called Gumball Helmets. Like you went to a gumball machine and you would put in your nickel at the time and you'd get a little helmet. Well, they put out a full set and it looks kind of like that.
So wild.
So that is... Yeah, that is the 19, I think probably about 65, maybe 66. You can see that CFL logo there. That's the when they started from 63 to 69 before they switched to the helmet logo. Inside, you get little helmets like that. You can kind of see it. It comes with a set of gold posts that you'd put them on, and then the stickers to put on the side of them. And I don't know if you can see, there's the full set in there. So
pretty cool.
Coming with the box itself is absolutely outrageous to find. And there are a lot of people. I've been talking with Trevor Kennard, anyone that remembers the old Winnipeg Blue Bomber kicker. He's a good Edmonton boy. He and his twin brother both played for the Golden Bears. And he's been looking for a set similar to this, but a little later version. And so far I haven't found it, but I found that one. So I'm like, no, that's coming home.
Hey, Mike, can you zoom in on that old CFL logo again?
The logo?
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So that was the first real CFL logo that they had after forming in 1958. That sort of came out a couple of years later, 62, 63, something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Superfan. That's outstanding. Let's very quickly talk about our free agents and the schedule that just came out. Elks did have some signings this week. Grimes for 2 years. Diego is back for 2 years, which is fantastic.
That means good chocolate for everybody.
Yay! Our favorite. And also signing Dubai, Quartus, and McGirt for 3 years. So kind of nice to see some 3-year contracts in there. That's exciting when we've just been talking about continuity. I don't know what that. Okay, sorry, my dog was scratching at the window. I'm like, what is that? And I look up and I see this face peering in the window. Like, yes,
I've seen movies that sound like that. They're never good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you have an 85-pound some looking in your window, it's like, whoa. Hello.
Little less scary than a bald man looking through your door.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so. Lots of free agents on this team. Lots of guys that I'm not sure will be back. But Morley, let's start with you this time. Is there a couple of guys that you're like, okay, we need to get this guy back? Like, there's lots where we could go through and say, maybe not. But what are the guys that we need to get back?
Yeah, I didn't peruse the list all that hard, but I know Dave and I were talking about this earlier today too, and I think it starts maybe with Matt O'Donnell on the offensive line, and I'd be very eager to have Kwaku Boateng back as well.
Yes.
He didn't have the greatest season, but he's still got great potential to be a terrific player, and has been in years past, and played pretty well, I thought, at the end of the season this year. But Matt O'Donnell, I mean, if you're talking about getting into the community and being a part, those are the kind of players that you have to have on your team. I mean, a guy very willing to do that. He's the longest serving member of the team now. And I know there comes a point where you have to cycle those guys out, but Matt O'Donnell's still a really good football player. So I don't think he wants to go anywhere, and you got to believe that he'd be an asset to keep. So he'd be the first guy I'd look at. As far as some of the other guys go, you got to wonder, Darrell Walker and Greg Ellingson and what their status is going to be moving forward. I don't know if there'd be a lot of interest in bringing them back. I'm not sure. And again, it depends on who gets the job as general manager and who gets the job as coach, if they want those guys back or not. So
Yep, very fair.
But to me, the first one that jumps out at me is Matt O'Donnell.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, I'm with Morley. I think Matt O'Donnell's priority number one if he wants to come back, and I got a feeling he does. I agree with Boateng. I mean, he was silent for weeks, but his last 5 games, he really came on, and I think he was back to kind of his old self again. So I would sign him back. I'd sign Sean White back too. To have stability in your kicking game. I know they got Dante Brown and they got Hugh O'Neill around, but I would definitely, you got to have stability in your kicking game. Sean White can still get it done. And then I look at 2 players on their defense. One is Derek Moncrief. If they can re-sign him, I would do that. The other one, and he should have been an all-star, is Tremaine Washington. He got snubbed, and that was unfortunate. And so, funny story. So we picked Derek Moncrief. Morley and I had a vote. We picked him as the defensive player of most outstanding defensive player. And then Tremaine Washington has a 2-interception performance in Toronto. Well, we had to vote by Sunday.
Right.
That, I think we voted before we boarded a flight from Regina to Toronto. They were like, and honestly, I do believe that Derek Moncrief is their most talented defensive player. But
don't forget, he was just coming off a 3-sack performance too, right?
Yeah, he was great. Yeah. But Tremaine Washington was excellent this year. So he's a priority for me. And I would consider Ellingson coming back. I would, because I think he did have a better year than people give him credit for, although scoring 1 touchdown is not good enough, obviously. When Shai Ross and Mike Jones and Jalen Tolliver and what? Huh?
Tavon. Yeah.
And
Tavon Smith.
Yeah, James Wilder had 2 touchdowns. But I would still consider bringing him back, but definitely has to be at a lower price. Yeah, Darrell Walker, I don't understand what was going on with him. His body language in games were terrible. His body language with us his demeanor with us was not good, and that's the important thing. And James Wilder, I don't know. I think Walter Fletcher has shown enough that he potentially is the man. There's not a lot on this free agent list I would go. They have to have. And to be honest, the players that are under contract doesn't mean they're going to be around for long as well. So, from the outset, this is not a good roster. It's not a good roster. And we talk about the quarterback play, the quarterback stability. You got Arbuckle, you got Cornelius, you got Prukop. Arbuckle, I know people were like, why didn't Arbuckle play? You didn't want him playing with that group. You didn't want him playing. Not with that O-line, not with that receiving core, not with that short amount of time in 7 days. You didn't want Nick Arbuckle playing. I think Taylor Cornelius showed some flashes. I think he was hurt by no practice time in the final week after the game in Regina. But the quarterback stable doesn't necessarily jump out at you and go, oh, wow, there's some potential there, but this is a hurting roster. This is not a very good roster, and whoever is the GM has got their hands full.
Yeah, to say the least. Mike, you just agree with all those, or was there anyone else that we missed?
I mean, obviously, I agree with all of those people. I have them on my list. Jordan Hoover, I'd like to see come back again as well, get a little bit of stability at the safety position. And the one guy that doesn't get a lot of fanfare, but I think comes to work every game is James Tuck. And we've seen getting those special team guys that'll stay. Like when we've lost many special teams guys, whether it be Calvin,
Mike Miller.
Mike Miller was the guy I was thinking of, and look what he's done in Winnipeg. When we got rid of him, I was stunned at the time. Corbin Sharoon was another guy that was a great special teamer that was just sort of cast aside. And I think the team suffers for that. And even though our special teams wasn't great, I think getting rid of the best guys on your special teams may not be the best move. So he's on my list as well.
Yep, that's good. That's good news.
Absolutely. Yep. Anybody for you there, Kayla?
Well, that's the same thing. I mean, I really appreciated our conversation with Kwaku when we got to do our little promotion thing, and the insight that we got to see from his perspective about this season. It just it really goes to show what kind of, man he is, but also the player that he is, and, why those struggles occurred, and why he may have not been performing like he usually was. A big missing piece was not having Armando there, and, he was humble enough to
Yeah.
Exactly, and he was humble enough to say, like, look, this wasn't, what am I supposed to do when I don't have like my key guy beside me? And so obviously, like, we're very biased on this podcast, and we want to see Kwaku back, and I mean that's no exception on any of our lists. But for Mama Jedi and myself, I'll say Termaine Washington is definitely up there. Definitely agree with you. Got snuffed. Like, that guy was a rock star this year, so I'm really excited. Hopefully, if they sign him, to see what he can do next year, because I think he's another rising star. But yeah, I definitely agree with all you guys, but those are the two that stood out for me.
Yeah, maybe they purposely bring in Chris Jones just so that they can keep Moncrief. I mean, he played for him before.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe.
Yeah,
he's so
there's
good.
a connection. Yeah,
he's so dynamic.
Yeah, he's amazing. Absolutely. And just so that you guys know, the Wilson cam is on. I'm probably just because he just popped in to say hello.
Believe me, the people here have spoken.
Have spoken. The Wilson
Yes.
cam is popular, so I have to put the
Yes.
Wilson cam on when he pops in there. Yeah. He's not looking at the camera, but he is hanging out.
He's still cute.
They didn't care.
Okay, good. Yeah. Right, puppy? There he goes. Okay. There you go. Okay. Now, schedule-wise, did you guys look over the schedule, and is there anything that jumped out to you, good, bad, or otherwise?
A lot of
Dave?
stamps.
A lot of stamps.
Okay,
Yeah, a lot of
you know what,
stamps, a
though?
lot of riders.
Sorry.
I'm happy that they went with the unbalanced schedule again. Is anybody?
Nah, I don't like it.
You don't like?
I mean, it's a 9-team league. You should go everywhere. And everybody, you should get to see every team in your stadium, and you should visit every stadium. That's my thoughts on it. It's a 9-team league.
I wanted to go to Montreal so bad next year.
Fair.
You can.
Fair.
I
They're in
can, just
Montreal.
not playing my team, but
Oh, right.
You
yeah.
can.
no, they're
No,
here.
you can. No, they're
I
playing
thought
in
they were
Montreal.
here for
July
my team.
14th.
Yep.
No, we're there as
Nope.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Week
When?
6.
Yeah.
July
Yep.
14th.
Oh, the preseason?
No.
No, we're
No.
out
July,
there
week
July,
6.
Yeah, July 14th. Yeah.
Yeah, the
thought
Elks
we
It's
were
Thursday
the
night,
ones
too. You
that
can make
was
it a long
here.
weekend.
We were
Yeah.
the ones holding the sign, Kayla. Come on.
No, it's-
in the video, we were.
Yeah, you were
Check
there.
the video.
They didn't tell us what it was. I was just holding the sign, and I was excited.
Did you not watch
It
the
was
video?
challenging.
With you? Yeah.
Of course I did,
Yeah,
but I was like, ooh.
There's just 2 teams. We don't have Hamilton coming here, and we're not going to Toronto.
That's who it was. Thank
Right.
you. Okay.
See, for-
No Holy Mazzoli.
From Ottawa's
Right.
perspective,
Well,
it's terrible.
that you know of.
That's true.
Like I'm thinking
Why
about
do you say
Ottawa and
that, Dave?
Montreal's perspective. Why do they have to play each other 5 times? That's just dumb, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
ridiculous. That's just
Yeah.
completely ridiculous. Oh, by the way, my wife texted me because she's up above watching Modern Family before it leaves Netflix, and she says you talk too much. She's right. But
This was never in question, Dave.
yeah.
That's
Never
what Halsey
in
used to say about you, too.
wow.
Don't we also
Alternate
play
universe.
the Stampeders 5 times though too?
Yes,
We do
played
play
the
them 5
Stampede-
times.
Well, I
yes,
know.
Once in the
Yeah, so-
preseason and 4 in the regular
But it's
season.
too much.
Yes.
But don't tell me this is health and safety. Why you go? You only play Hamilton once and play Toronto once. It's not has anything to do with health and safety.
No,
nothing.
this has everything about building rivalry. That's what it's all
Yep.
about.
Which I appreciate.
Now,
but
what
we
I do
already have,
like-
let's be honest.
Now, if you're the organization, you're going, wow, 2 home games against the Riders, 2 home games against the Stampeders. Cha-ching,
Right.
cha-ching, cha-ching.
Right.
It's
And a
true.
Sunday night game, too, which is pretty rare in the regular season. We've had Sunday preseason games, but it's been a long time, I think, since there's been a Sunday regular season game at home. And it's a good schedule, like, 5 Saturdays, 2 Fridays, a
Ooh.
Thursday, and a Sunday, I think it is, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
That's
pretty
good.
accommodating.
we even got nice bye weeks. Like other than we have the bye week on the last week of the season, which
We did in 2015.
that's fair. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How'd that work out?
Yeah. That was okay. It was all right.
And then before that, it was, I think, 81 as well.
Oh well, that also worked out well. Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, Grey Cup for us. Perfect.
Perfect.
That's what I want to hear. That's we're
Yeah.
just say it right now. We're
I think it's
full
less about-
Valentine.
Yeah, I mean,
18-0 Grey Cup.
Perfect. Tim Capper's saying, I don't think it's health and safety, it's cost savings because it's cheaper to have people travel to Calgary than people in Edmonton traveling to Montreal or to
A bus ride to
Toronto.
Calgary is cheaper than a plane ride to Toronto, right? That's
Yeah.
just simple math.
Sorry,
Right? So
I retract. I meant to say Toronto because I really wanted to go to the Toronto Stadium. BMO? No, not BMO. Was it
Yeah.
BMO?
Yeah.
Yeah, BMO.
That's the one.
I really
Yeah.
wanted to go
Yeah,
next
BMO.
year. And sorry, so
okay.
I retract Montreal and I meant to say Toronto. Sorry.
So, are you going to Montreal?
Oh,
then?
heck yes.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Okay, that's exciting. We'll get more into the schedule next year as it gets close. Overall, I thought it was a decent schedule for the way the home games are. I'm glad there wasn't any 8 o'clock games. I know, Mike, you would appreciate that.
Yes.
And
anyone with a family
Yeah.
must like that.
absolutely.
And
So
any
I
kind of
was
with it. No, I even don't like those.
We have a 7:31, and
Yes.
that's in early June or middle June. So,
but at least that's when it's nice.
and in
out.
October,
Not when it's
October 21st is a Friday game,
well,
7:30.
okay, that could be a tough one. We'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
see. Okay.
that's BC. We'll find-
That'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. Nathan Rourke starting. Okay. Just throwing it out there. Okay. Before
how'd that work for us last time?
yeah, not so great. Okay, let's do this. This episode is also brought to you by the Edmonton Community Foundation. The foundation acts as a bridge between donors and charities to create a strong, vibrant community for generations to come. You can start an endowment fund yourself or with a group. Once it reaches $10,000, it can start distributing funds. You can learn more at ecfoundation.org. That's ecfoundation.org. All right. Well, this was an amazing conversation, as it always is. And thank you guys so much for coming on. Dave, please apologize to your wife that I had you talk too long, although I love every minute of it.
So it's okay.
Yeah, you can tell her that we all really love it. I don't know if that helps at
Mhm.
all. Yeah, probably just means that I'm going to get a message on Facebook to say, "Can you please shut him up?" And I'll be like, "No," because I like.
I'm just interrupting her Modern Family binge watching.
Oh, okay.
I can't blame her for
This
that.
is what this is all about.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we appreciate you chatting as
Thank you.
always. Thank you guys. Morley, I know you're doing early mornings, so give everyone the plugs where they can hear you in the off season, and then of course we'll have you on before the season starts, so you can plug what you do on a regular basis that we love.
Yep, on the Tweety box at Morley_Scott, and you can catch me every morning on 6:30 Ched Mornings with Daryl McIntyre and Randy Kilburn and Sarah Fox, and we just have a whole lot of fun and bring you the information. Sportscast at 25 after and 5 to the hour all morning long, starting in just a couple hours from now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Legends.
I have to admit, I had to drive out to Lloydminster the other day, and it was nice to have a familiar voice as I was driving out that way early in the morning. So that was very helpful. I appreciate that.
Narrate your life.
Exactly.
The soundtrack of your life.
When I write my story, it's going to be the audiobook is going to be read by Morley Scott, and it's going to
Yes.
be
I would love
so good. Yeah.
I think you can afford me.
I like this. I like the way this is planning. Dave, where does everybody find you these days?
Yeah, on Twitter, Dave_Chad. Plug for Inside Sports with Reed Wilkins from 6 to 8 because I'm the producer of that fine program. You can catch me when I'm working. I'm off this week, so but you can catch me on Global News Radio from middle of the afternoon to about 6 o'clock, and I am everywhere, basically everywhere.
Which is the way it should be.
Omnipresent.
That's what we hope for.
That was actually at my door today. It wasn't Andrew.
What's that?
It was Omnipresent Dave.
That's right.
Omnipresent Dave.
There you go.
There's a new handle.
Yeah. Also title of the podcast. Okay, Superfan Mike, where do we find you?
You can find me at 56 Parkies, and then you can find the history and the Horde stuff at the Edmonton Football History Twitter, which is at EDMHISTOREE.
Wonderful. And Commissioner Kayla?
I'm trying to follow up after that. I'm very dull. You can find me on Twitter at Duchess Lombardi.
Sing it.
And that's it.
Spell it out with this tune. Come on now. All right. Make sure that you are following our good friends Pay It Forward with Football on Twitter, Facebook, and of course their website. As I know they finished up their Stuff a Wallet program and should be going out, I believe it's this week. So thank you to everyone that contributed to that and is part of spreading kindness, as we appreciate that. Of course, you can find all of the other great shows on the Alberta Podcast Network at albertapodcastnetwork.com. How was that, Mike?
That was beautiful.
Okay, good. I was really working on that one. And of course, join us in the huddle at the Turf District on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We will be back in the new year. And of course, if we have any breaking news, we might do just a quick YouTube live hit.
A little episode?
Yeah, well, that might have to happen. I don't know. Something might happen.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in there. Yeah, exactly.
In an hour.
Are you guys busy? Yeah, no.
Just be 3 martinis deep.
I'll get Dave on so that we can just hear him brag about picking Chris Jones again.
Bragging.
Oh, come on.
It's Chris Jones theme music. Okay.
Gotta have Dave on before long anyway, because when I beat him in fantasy, it'll be important to talk about that too.
Oh.
Nothing?
Bring it. Bring
There
it.
we go.
You're kicking Paul's butt. So,
Yeah, I know. It's making me feel really happy. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, he messaged me and said this was going to happen, that you would kick his butt anyway. I am pulverizing JT right now. So
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So it's the right people are winning there. I think. I don't know if that. I'm gonna get in trouble.
In the final.
Got to stop yammering like that. Okay. Once again, this show is dedicated to all of our very good friend Bill Kempthorne, and all the best to his family. And like I said, we hope for nothing for him other than the best seat at every game from here on out. And thank you for all the laughs, my friend. It was great. On that note, Merry Christmas to everybody. And to everybody on the call, everybody listening, hope you have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we hope to talk to you soon. So for Dave, Morley, Superfan Mike, Commissioner Kayla, I'm Andrew. I know I couldn't even get through it without laughing. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely... No, not next week. Happy New Year.